Right, so we're going to hear now about building full-stack Web3 dApps from someone that you probably all know, Ivan, from his new project Moralis. And everybody knows Ivan, but I'm going to tell you something about him that nobody knows about. So when he was 9 years old, he was playing a computer game called Runscape, and he got hacked because he gave his password to someone, to a scammer, and from that day on, he knows that you should never give your password, and probably that's why he got into crypto. Ivan, welcome to the stage,
thank you
and good luck.
Thanks. Perfect. Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect. Thanks for the introduction. And as you can see, we're going to speak about building full-stack dApps. Because as a kid, not only did I play online games, I also programmed a lot. And really, online gaming got me into development. So having the background as a developer and coming into Web3, you realize that this full-stack experience for devs has a lot of improvements. And that's where my journey in Web3 development tools started. How to ensure that Web3 devs have a very nice, very tight workflow for building full stack. So in this presentation, we will define what is full stack for Web3 and what kinds of components a full stack Web3 dApp has and what kind of tools and libraries and utilities we can use in order to make the life simpler, our life simpler when we're building things. So my name is Ivan. Some people know me as Ivan on Tech. Been in crypto since 2013 or so, bought the top in 2013. It went straight down, 80%, kind of like now, kind of like recent few months. And always had this very nice programming development touch on my journey in Web3. That's why I got interested in the first place. And then ETH came in 2015, and it opened up a whole new world of programming value that we as developers for the first time could program money. That's insane. And that's how my journey continued in Web3. So let's speak about full stack and what it means to build full stack in Web3. Whatever we're building, whether it is NFT marketplace, whether it is some wallet, whether it is some game, there will always be three parts involved in our application. There's going to be on-chain logic, for example, smart contracts, tokens, NFTs, the actual programmable money, programmable tokens, programmable money flows. Those will be on-chain. But we also need off-chain. So off-chain is needed, for example, if you have a user logging into your website using their wallet and you want to establish a web session between the user wallet, their front end, and your backend service. That's very important. You need to have this mix of Web3 and Web2. And why is it important? Well, because many of the things we want to do in order to serve our users are simply not yet possible on-chain. Not yet. Maybe in the future we can remove the off-chain logic part. But the way it is right now, if you have a game, for example, the whole game will not be running on-chain. The multiplayer, the backend, it will be off-chain. And then you will have a way to interact with the on-chain data, on-chain assets, on-chain smart contracts, and so on and so forth. So in order to build something full stack, you have on-chain and you have off-chain, and you need ways to communicate there in between. And then, of course, at the end of the day, you need the interaction with the user. So there needs to be UI, UX, for a user to be able to interact with your dApp, to understand how to do things, which button to click. And this needs to work smoothly with your backend, with the on-chain contracts, and everything that you have built in this full stack experience. So a way to summarize the full stack is that we have smart contracts, we have backend, we have front end. If you have these three things, and they speak nicely with each other, you're 90% there. But as we will soon discover, there are many complexities to do this. And we ourselves stumbled upon many issues just trying to build simple things in 2017 and 2018. For example, we have a YouTube channel, so we tried to build a simple app where people can log in with their MetaMask, and you can see their NFTs in the chat and which NFTs they have. I mean, doing this without the backend, just using MetaMask, turns out to be quite impossible, because how do other users in the chat know that you actually have your assets? How do you ensure that people cannot cheat? So just these simple things to log in somewhere and that everyone else can see what you have, which assets, which NFC, turns out to be quite more difficult than you think, because when you come into Web3, you think it's MetaMask. It's everything in MetaMask. I just use Web3.js or Ethers.js, and I don't need anything else. But then as soon as you try to build something more complex, you realize it's not enough, and there are some things missing. So that's the next part. We're going to discuss why it's so difficult and how we can extend the current tools and the current workflows. So the current workflow when it comes to building a full-stack dApp is that first you have to create smart contracts. So here you will be using a programming language like Solidity for EVM, or Rust for Solana, or Viper for EVM. And then you will be using different tools, whether it's Hardhat, or Truffle, or Foundry, in order to develop them, and to upload them, and to test them, and so on. So that's the first step of the workflow. The second step of the workflow is to connect to backend. So here is where you will have to figure out how to do user authentication and create a web session based on user wallet. This is whether you use Node.js or .NET or Java or Python. That's your job right now. It's not something that the chain will do for you. It's not something that is built into the Web3 stack. And I will soon show you how to make this easier. Then, the next step of the workflow is that once the user has logged in, how to get all their assets. Turns out, I cannot just ask MetaMask all the assets of my user, because MetaMask themselves don't really know. You have to import token. You have to import NFCs. This whole problem of discovering which assets user has, it's a big problem if you are a developer. And it's only the start of the problem, because the next thing is that you need to, in real time, watch what happens to the user. Maybe they logged into your game, into your dApp. Now you need in real time to track what they do with your smart contracts, or which assets they transfer, which NFTs they transfer. And this is also something that is impossible to do without a backend. And that's where this part of the workflow comes in, that we will soon show different tools that you can solve with. And finally, the second step is to connect all of this to front-end in a very nice way, where your front-end dev doesn't have to be a blockchain ninja. Because if you have a front-end dev, they're amazing at React, at making single-page application, all of that. Or maybe they're a game developer. Front-end is also games. They're making Unity, Unreal. They shouldn't have to learn Web3 provider, and all of that. It becomes like another level of complexity to be front-end developer. So this is the current workflow. And this is really where we started. How can we simplify it? How can we make it easier? And maybe you have your own ideas how to make this easier, and it will be nice to discuss. But on the next slide, I will explain how we try to make this easier and simplify it. So the first thing is to realize that you just wanted a small dApp. But if you do all of this yourself, what we just discussed, you need to run big data pipelines. You have to have 10 people just monitoring your backend so it doesn't break, so it doesn't fork into some other blockchain because of a reorganization. And you're stuck fixing all of this, and your competitors will kill you. If you just do everything from first principles, everything based on things, for example, like Ethers or Web3, and build everything around you. So here's where we have tried to come up with some solutions that can make it simpler. And Moralis workflow is basically an extension of what we discussed previously. It's an extension of, for example, Hardhat and Web3, JS, and other current tools in order to simplify it. And the first way is the users. That what we try to provide is a way for you to authenticate users from any backend without caring about signature verification, about caring about how to ensure that the security practices are followed in the signature verification, without caring about what's the difference between a signature on Ethereum versus a signature on Solana versus a signature on Elrond, because this is what you have to do in order to establish a connection to a backend and create a secure web session between your backend and your user. Also, imagine you have Web2 users. So maybe you already have a game. You already have some kind of Web2 experience. You want to add Web3 to it. How do you do that? Easily, with your existing user database. Well, Moralis workflow, Moralis authentication is how you do it. Or imagine you use Auth0, which is massive for backend authentication, as you all know, in Web2. How to add easily Web3 into it? Well, Moralis workflow. And this is where we started in 2021 last year. We thought, why is it so difficult to log in users in Web3? Well, it is because MetaMask will only take care of the front end. Web3.js Ethers, they only take care of the front end. There's no backend connection. So that was our first feature. How do we ensure all of this in a simple SDK, in a simple way, without extra complexity. Now, the second thing is syncing. Syncing events, syncing user transactions. Once the user is logged in, how to know their history. Maybe you're building like a dashboard, like Zappify or Zerion, and you need to get all the user transactions from the past. It's quite complex if you want to do it yourself and to tag that this transaction is a transfer, this transaction is an NFT trade, this transaction is a staking transaction, this is unstaked, this is a proof. It's quite a lot. But also, the sheer data pipelines needed to do this efficiently on all chains. As you know, Binance Chain, for example, spits out 2,000 transactions each and every 3 seconds. So if you are building a backend completely alone, you really need to have a big data team. I mean, you're not even a Web3 developer if you want to do this yourself. You're a big data developer. You need to have pipelines to do this, just on Binance Chain, 3,000 transactions per second. But then imagine you also have Solana and Elrond, and suddenly you need to probably process tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of transactions per second, tag them and do everything. So that's what we also allow easily to do with Moralis syncs. You come here via the UI, you say, hey, I want to track NFT transfers or token transfers or any other transfers by just entering the ABI and the contract, and into your database it gets populated very efficiently without knowing any complexity. The third step of the workflow, so the first 2 steps were users, syncs. The third step is the APIs that we offer. So here's where we solve the issue with user logs in, which are the assets of the user. Impossible to know without an API. Unfortunately, it is like that on Ethereum. On Solana, it is a bit easier because there the node can tell you a lot of this, but the way it works in EVM, the nodes cannot tell you anything. I mean, the nodes themselves hardly know something more than they have to know in order to stay in consensus. The nodes are for consensus. But to use nodes as some kind of backend, it is a bit of misconception, which I also thought when I started as a blockchain developer. I thought that the RPC node will give me everything. No, it cannot give you anything. It can stay in consensus and can give you basic things about specific questions, about contracts. You can execute a contract function. But to know things that are a bit more above that, for example, how to know the recent trades that the user did on an NFT marketplace, the node cannot tell you that without extra processing around that. So that's the third step of Moralis workflow: users, syncs, and different APIs for on-chain data. The final step and the fourth step is the SDKs, because of course we want to enable anyone to build on top of Web3. Whether you're a game developer, you don't know anything about crypto and Web3, you just want to log in users easily. We provide a nice Unity SDK. Whether you are a .NET, Node.js, Java, Python developer, you want to connect Web3 to your existing infrastructure, your existing user database. There we provide SDKs. And it's very important because there are great tools and solutions in Web3, but without nice SDKs, it's not going to get adoption. Because the development ecosystem today is very nice in Web2. You know, as a developer in Web2, you hardly have to do anything. You have to write npm install, and you're ready to go. You get a nice SDK, you can get started very, very easily. So the attention span of devs learning something new, quite small. Of course, if you're a professional, you will still learn it. But if we are speaking about onboarding the next million devs into Web3, we need to make it easy for them. It needs to be npm install and very easy functions, and that's it. And that's our big goal. How do we ensure that Web3 is not just 300,000 devs, which we have right now approximately, but how do we reach tens of millions? Because globally, we have 30 million devs. In Web3, just 300,000. So it's 1%. It's a lot of work we have to do. And we hope to contribute to that by making nice SDKs, whether you're using .NET NuGet or NPM in Node.js or Unity Package Manager, it should be easy. Also, in connection to the SDKs, we have one SDK that we've made ourselves in particular for React devs in particular, which is Web3 UI Kit, which is open source and anyone can contribute to it, which is the best thing. That it's very nice to see how any one of you can contribute, but also any one of you can start your own repos. So with this, we try to show that, okay, it's not super science to start new repos. You can, if you want to get started with an open source repo as a React dev, this is the place for you to go. But also, if you have your own ideas and your own thoughts how Web3 should be, you should start your own repos, your own projects, and see that anyone can do it. If you have the ideas, get started. Because as a dev in Web 2, it may be a bit intimidating. You see all of these big repos like React, I don't know how many stars, like 100,000 stars on GitHub. This other repo has so many stars on GitHub. But Web 3 is so underdeveloped, you could make a repository, it will also get thousands of stars on GitHub. So I hope that this will be also as an inspiration, because Web3 UI Kit, we started a few months ago, like in November or so, and it is approaching very, very quickly 1K stars. We have other repos with 3K stars, 4K stars. So if you have open source ambitions, Web3 is for you, and you don't have to be this consensus creator of how proof of work, because that's very complex. If you like just front end, you're very good at that, you're good to go. So your first destination should be Web3 UI Kit if you want to contribute and see how that works, and then ideally do your own. Next, if you want to get involved with us, you have our YouTube. We try to get to 100,000 subscribers, so Moralis Web3. Subscribe there. Each and every week, we build full stack dApp from scratch to finish. We've had, for example, last few weeks, we had Elden Ring clone. We work in game engine, Unity, in order to recreate Elden Ring, where you kill the boss. The boss drops what? NFTs. The boss drops tokens. Your souls, they're ERC20, and you can do this yourself. You join our Discord easily, moralis.io/join Discord, do it right now. And also, these events are the best for meeting, for getting in touch, for potentially working together. So if you want to know how we work, we're approximately 80 people at Moralis, 80, 90 people. And we have a Moralis business school that is quite new. We launched it a few weeks back, where we show how we work. It's fully remote. We show the values, the engineering principles, things like that. So if you want to work with us, you go to moralis.io/MBS, which stands for Moralis Business School. And you have a Moralis onboarding course, which all of our team members go through. But you can also go through, it's completely open, and anyone can do it. And finally, if you have the same mission as we do, how to bring the next million devs into Web3, how to make it easy so everything is like npm install and ready to go, how to make all the integrations as smooth as possible between Web 2 and Web 3. If you have this philosophy that in order for Web 3 to be big, we have to be compatible with the existing tools, existing workflows, existing libraries that Web 2 devs use, then join us. Go to talent.moralis.io right now. And on that note, thanks a lot, everyone, for listening. I hope you got an overview of what's needed for full stack dApps, why it's difficult. It is not easy to build full stack dApps, because there's a big data component that is missing from just your normal RPC node. That it's a lot of backend, especially in EVM. Solana and others, it's a bit easier, but they have other pros and cons, as you all know. So happy to connect. We're here outside. Thanks a lot for inviting us here, and a pleasure to meet you all. Thanks, guys.